Hey, what's up everybody? It's Christian with Reaper Disc, and recently we've been getting a lot of recommendations or requests to start breaking down some of the more basic aspects of the game of disc golf. And today we're going to be starting that, breaking down the basics, starting off with backhand form. Now, I could go on for hours about backhand form and all the little intricacies and details that go into what makes a good backhand shot. However, that's not going to necessarily be the point of this video per se. I can dive more into it and give, an hour-long video of every little detail of the backhand form and how that changes the shot and improves the shot. But like I said, I could go on forever on those little details. This is just going to be a down and dirty breakdown of how to basically throw a backhand for people who are brand new to the game or are trying to learn proper form. So there are a handful of big key points here that I want to be talking about. First is going to be the footwork and the X step. Second is going to be the reach back, and third is going to be the pull through in the actual throwing motion itself. Now, I'll go ahead and tip off on a couple things really quick on, something that a lot of people inadvertently do, and that's called rounding. This is one of the bigger mistakes that newer players and everything find themselves doing, and is often one of the biggest things to try to tackle when learning proper form. Now, simply put, rounding is whenever you are pulling through for the throwing motion and keeping your body in the way of, the ideal path of the disc on that pull through. And because of that, you're reaching back further behind you instead of in a line directly with the intended flight path. And because of that, your body's in the way, and you're then going to be bringing the disc around your body and then throwing and trying to time it out just right. Now, there are times where rounding is almost intended, and some backhand roller shots are examples of this. However, for your traditional throws and proper form, rounding is bad. Rounding is something we want to start getting away from. So, looking at it from the side profile, rounding from this point, if I'm throwing that way, I'm going to, instead of reaching straight back in a line, I'm going to be reaching way back here and then pulling the disc around, making it go in like a half circle around my body. Now, the big mistakes we're going to run into with this is you're going to be releasing a lot of anhyzer. It's almost impossible to round and release with hyzer. So you're going to be releasing with anhyzer, and you're either going to be releasing early and skying it nose up and stalling it out, or you're going to be holding on just a little bit too long and then grip locking it and yanking it way to the right. You can start throwing unintentional like cut rollers, throwlers, things like that just by doing this. So that's what we're going to want to get around. And that's honestly the biggest mistake that I see a lot of newer players doing is rounding. So we'll get to how to fix that in just a moment. But first, we're going to start with the X step. Now, the footwork behind this is, the biggest thing. A lot of people say like the timing of the footwork in the X step is one of the harder things to tackle and start getting right. That way they can build the rest of their throw from that. So simply put, the X step is just a fancy way of how to do your run up. And, well, I'm going to have to move the camera just a touch, so bear with me just a second. Okay, so I have to point the camera down to my feet here on this, and let me adjust the zoom. There we go. Okay. So I have to point the camera down at my feet, so you're not going to see my face. Lucky you. So right here is basically how you're going to perform the X step. If you're throwing that way, and this works for right-handed people, if you're lefty, just mirror it, flip it back and forth. So for me, I'm basically going to take a slight step forward with my right leg, my lead leg, and then forward. So basically, as far as the spacing goes, it's gonna be about 1 foot in front of my back leg as far as how far out it is. And that's just giving me room to get that back leg out and behind. Now, it'll also be a couple foot, just a little wider than shoulder width as far as how far apart they are. So that right leg's gonna be about 1 foot forward and about shoulder width wide. That's gonna give you enough room to take the back leg and trail behind with the initial X. Now bear in mind, I'm facing the camera, that way you can still pick up my voice, but realistically it's gonna look like this. You just can't hear me because I'm pointing that way. So from here, you're then going to transfer the weight to the back leg and then take that big step forward with your plant leg, that lead leg again, and that's where you're gonna plant, driving from the hips, deriving all the power from the ground up through your throw. And here's where you're gonna be taking your throw. So a couple of times, really quick, it's a step forward with your lead leg, step behind with your trail leg or your back leg, and then plant forward with your lead leg again. Now I'll do it kind of facing this way. So again, it's a step forward with your lead leg, cross over with your trail leg, your back leg is gonna go behind your lead leg, and then a big plant forward to generate your power. Now, I'll kind of step through that a little bit, and I'm gonna adjust this down. Well, maybe. There we go. Now you can see my feet. So I'm gonna be throwing that way, and just watch my feet here. All right, so now that we got the footwork down, now we're going to start looking at the second of the 3 major components of the backhand throw, and that's going to be the reach back. Now, like I said, with rounding, here's where a lot of people go wrong and end up rounding, when the reach back goes behind their shoulder instead of in a line. So think about it this way. Think about you have a target off in the distance. For me, I'm just going to aim up at those soccer goals way out there, which, let me zoom in on that for you. There you go. So I'm just going to be using those as a target line for me. Now, basically, I want to create a line that goes directly from where I'm throwing from to the target. Do that in my head, get that imaginary line going down. That way, I see a visual of that line the whole way there. Now, I don't want my disc to vary off of that line very much at all, unless I want it to. Like, unless I'm intending for it to be varied off that line, like I'm throwing a roller, or I'm throwing a big spike hyzer shot, or a Sky Annie shot. Something like that, where I'm going to have to intentionally tweak my form, which is a more advanced thing that you can get into later after you get the initial basic form down. As of right now, I just want to make sure that my disc stays as close to that line as possible, varying very little. I don't want it to, so if I'm standing here, my target line is directly in front of me. I want from reach back to release on that line, and that's honestly the most efficient way to throw. Everyone learned in geometry class going through school, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. We want the shortest distance between reach back and release. That way we're not expending extra energy moving that disc any further than what we need to. The most efficient way to throw is to have that straightest line the whole way through. That's the least amount of resistance and also the least amount of space that it needs to travel, thus conserving a little more energy and being able to transfer that energy into the throw itself, not adjusting around your body for the reach back. So whenever you go to plant at the end of your X step, you should at this point be back here with your reach back. And it's going to be very exaggerated if you're throwing power, but if you're just throwing control, right here is about where my reach back is. Now, again, this is directly on that line that I'm wanting to release on. So here, I'm moving my body slightly out of the way here. So a lot of people say that your plant step needs to be a little more forward toward the front left if you're right-handed, front right if you're lefty, but more toward that front left corner of the tee pad. That way you can really exaggerate getting over top the disc and moving your body out of the way. This works for just incredible power shots. However, you're going to want to remain a little more upright as you're getting started because that's where you're going to have the most control. So I've got my plant down and I'm working on my reach back. You don't have to have an explosive reach back, and you kind of also want to avoid having a reach back that comes around and then going forward. You're expending more energy that way, you're not conserving that energy, and it's not very efficient. You also don't want to loop because all of this extra motion, it has to go somewhere. You can't just stop and then go without, really throwing off your timing and also expending a lot more energy doing that, wasting that energy instead of letting it get transferred into the throw. Because of that, you want it to just go pretty well straight back. And, try to avoid the big embellished motions and things like that. I know we all see Eric Oakley throw. It works for him, and if for some reason that's the only way you can throw and it works for you, then it works for you. But try to keep your throw motion simple, that way you can replicate it every single time. Now again, the reach back, after you plant, your reach back is going to be coming back and almost like you're facing the direct opposite way of where you're going to be throwing. And then from there, we're going to transition to the pull through, which is the last major part of the throw. Once you hit your reach back, you want your body slightly out of the way, so focus on getting your hips out, and that's also going to allow you to drive your hips forward by getting them kind of cocked back a little bit, getting the disc back in that power pocket, and then driving through using your hips, using your legs, drive into the throw, follow straight forward with that line. Now, an example that I like to give whenever I'm teaching newer players is lead with your elbow, almost like you're going to try to elbow a door in. Don't ever try to elbow a door in because it doesn't work and it's probably going to dislocate your shoulder or break your elbow. But that general motion like that, like you're just going to drive an elbow through a door, that's what you want to lead with. Drive forward with your elbow and try to keep this arm about as level as you can. That's going to keep the disc level. You're going to drive through, driving forward with your hips, transferring the weight from that back leg into the front leg, pushing forward, getting the hip rotation, activating the hips and letting them really snap everything through. Pull through, get the good rotation. You're going to want to rotate mainly on the heel of your lead foot. That way your foot can, if this is the heel of your foot and this is the toe, it's going to plant and swivel on the heel. That's what's going to allow you to get that pivot and that rotation really to get your body squared back forward. Now try to keep the disc on the line the entire time, driving forward, and then once you get here, I'm going to flip around. Once you get here, you've driven forward, you've got the disc trying to keep it along the chest line. Now you don't want to dip around and go up, you're gonna sky your shot. You don't wanna come up and then go down, you're gonna throw it directly into the ground. Try to keep it on a straight line all the way through on one even plane. Once you get through that, then you're just going to let your arm naturally uncurl and just point straight ahead. That's going to minimize the chances of you grip locking it or early releasing it, because instead of your arm coming around and trying to figure out exactly when to release it to get it to go straight, the disc is already going straight. As long as you're aimed in the right spot, it will go there. So I'm gonna take these, 4 putters right here real quick, and I'm gonna step through the throw again now that you're facing my upper body. That way you can see both the reach back and the pull through. All right, so those are the 3 main things about the backhand throwing form. Now, one other small thing really quick that isn't necessarily part of that big 3 is the follow through. Now, follow throughs can vary from person to person, so it's not necessarily a major thing. My main thing I want to say with a follow through is, first, make sure that you're planted well whenever you do a full commit follow through. I have personally gotten very hurt and out of commission for about 6 months due to that injury because I wasn't planted solidly. I was on a slick tee pad and my follow through actually came through and broke a couple bones in my leg. Try to avoid that by making sure that you have a good plant area, and if you can't plant solidly, whenever you go to throw, standstill throw. Or try to alter your lie just a little bit to where you're not stepping on something slick. But if it comes down to it, just standstill throw. It's not worth the injury. But if you have a good solid base where you plant, allow that back leg and the momentum of the throw to carry that back leg around forward and basically finish mirrored with your now back shoulder facing where you're going to be throwing. So if I'm right-handed and I go to throw, I'm allowing my back leg to come through, and then my left arm is going to be facing the throw. That's just going to allow me to get all of the energy I need into the throw itself without having to worry about stopping it and not being able to get enough into it. Allow that follow through to pull you around, allow that back leg to swing forward and land in front, and allow, that, back arm to now land in the lead. And you see a lot of people have a really exaggerated follow through. They'll come through and really come over with that arm up. This is popular with big distance because you're really wanting the full extension and that rubber band motion or rubber band effect and action to allow that disc to snap out of there, and then automatically you're going to retract everything back up like a rubber band that's been stretched out. So it's really going to pull that arm up and over. You don't necessarily have to do that. Like I said, it's popular with big distance throws. Just find a good, comfortable follow through that works for you and just stick to it. And everything, basically, don't fight against your own body. That's the biggest thing here, is just allowing your body to do what it wants to do. As long as you can keep that resistance minimal, you're not going to get hurt nearly as much, you're not going to strain yourself, and you're going to be able to throw further and for longer. You're not going to be gassed out after a single round because you're fighting your own body. That's just one small tip from me to help you guys kind of, reduce your risk of injury and learning from my mistakes of old. So that pretty well wraps up the backhand form. Catch us on our next video where we're going to be going over the basics of the forehand form as well. That way you guys will be a dual threat thrower out on the course and be able to open up plenty more shots that you didn't already have. If you guys like this content, like the video, drop us a comment and let us know, and give us some suggestions on what you guys would want to see next. If you guys are searching for a new disc or some awesome apparel, click the link in the description to this video to head over to reaperdisc.com. That way you can shop around to your little heart's content for whatever you want. The selection is absolutely massive, and I have yet to be looking for something that I couldn't find at Reaper Disc. Follow us on social media at Reaper Disc, that way you guys can keep up with all of our new releases, restocks, and exclusive drops, because we'll let you guys know on the socials before anywhere else. If you guys want to see more of this content, subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and you get to be the first ones to know whenever we start dropping more new content. And again, I'm Christian with Reaper Discs, and we'll see you guys in the next video.